we are going to preview the Big Ten Eastern Division from the standpoint of the professional gambler. OffshoreInsiders.com sports betting podcast. Thank you, folks. Very pleased to say we've gotten a lot of new listeners during the college football previews, the SEC East, SEC West. Make sure if you haven't heard those, go back and listening wherever you do listen to your podcast. But again, if you're a new listener, please, and you do like these podcasts, we ask that you vote for us at iTunes or Stitcher. Rate us, give us 5 stars. The experts tell us that will help us show up better in search engines. And of course, the more listeners we have, the more we will update with free information. All right, Ohio State is the favorite at minus 370 to win the Big Ten East, followed by Michigan State at plus 600. Next is Michigan at plus 1,400, followed closely by Penn State plus 1,550. Now let's get to the long shots. Maryland plus 6,500, Indiana plus 7,500, and Rutgers given almost no chance at plus 13,000. And we're going to take a look at a preview from a betting standpoint, what things to look for both from a spread and over-under standpoint. Obviously, Ohio State the overwhelming favorite. Braxton Miller, that was going to be a 3-headed quarterback battle, probably the greatest of all time. Now it's going to be 2-headed. Braxton Miller agreed to switch to the wide receiver, and he, a tremendous athlete, just makes Ohio State more of a threat. And who knows, maybe some trick plays could be run with 2 quarterbacks out there at the same time. Now it looks like Cardale Jones and J.T. Barnett fighting for that starting position. The old cliche, 2 quarterbacks equal no quarterbacks, that's complete BS. We always tell you that's more of inductive than deductive reasoning. The reason people say that when you have a quarterback battle, it is usually not because you have 2 superstar quarterbacks. It's because no one has really won it, and no one has really proven himself. That's obviously not the case here. And we saw that last year. Ohio State with 3 quarterbacks wins the national championship. Now, star running back Ezekiel Elliott and 4 offensive starters are back. See, that's the thing. Everybody looks at the quarterback position, and who knows, maybe Braxton/Miller as a Heisman candidate. Ohio State has as many Heisman candidates as you're going to get, because Ezekiel Elliott also very legitimate at the running back position. 4 offensive line starters back, 7 starters on both sides of the ball. Still, Ohio State, very tough to repeat, to say the least. They kind of snuck up on some teams that are really building more towards this year. No longer going to have that element of surprise. Still, college football, the one and only sport where big favorites tend to do well. Ohio State may think about style points, obviously, if Ohio State goes undefeated. Of course, there's a 100% certainty they'll make the Final Four. But you never know if you're going to get that one loss. So, again, Ohio State might still have some motivation to run up the score. But it's a general rule of thumb. We have found that going against champions early the next season in pro and college sports is a good play. Might have a tendency to go against Ohio State early in the year. Michigan State, Connor Cook, 3rd-year starter at quarterback. This is the best offensive line in the D'Antonio era. Great defensive line led by defensive lineman of the year, Shalique Calhoun. They lost 2 stars in the secondary. 24 seniors. Michigan State is a legitimate threat to Ohio State, and I think even more so. They're going to be a type of team that may have some of those motivation factors to really run up the score. But Michigan State is a legitimate threat to Ohio State. Still, from a betting standpoint, I don't really have a strong lean either way, whether they're going to be over or undervalued. Penn State, look, Christian Hackenberg, so much promise as a freshman, then really took a step back as a sophomore. Most of his supporting cast is back. The secondary is very strong. So on paper, a lot of reason for hope at Penn State, but honestly believe this is the first time from a pure motivational standpoint. I don't know if that us against them or the whole tragedy with the Jerry Sandusky. I think that is the longest any one intangible has ever really been a motivating factor for Penn State. Thought it was going to disappear last year. Then, once they had the bowl ban lifted, I think all of a sudden that just invigorated them again. And we may or may not have gotten lucky in that bowl game where they made the great comeback, but that was one of my stronger than minor bowl games, because we said that Penn State truly had more reason to rally around the seniors than just about any school I can think of in recent memory. But the bottom line is I really think that us against them intangible is finally end it. And I really think Penn State will probably be a negative spread team this year. But more so than the intangibles, we're going to keep an eye on Christian Hackenberg. Is he more like the freshman that showed some promise, or is he going to continue to take steps backwards? Look, Michigan, we know they have Jim Harbaugh. Should be a coaching improvement there over Brady Hoke, but don't expect all that many miracles. Built on defense. 24 of the 29 guys in the final depth chart on defense are actually back. Line is really the only defense, the only decent part on offense, but I do think where the coaching change will make a big difference with Jim Harbaugh is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. I think he'll invigorate the offense. And you're going to get a few low totals this year. I think Michigan might be a surprising over team. For Maryland, the offensive line is bigger and better. By the way, we're going to continue on. Visit us at offshoreinsiders.com for your free picks. Also, take a look at Duffy Video, especially if you know anybody who wants to make a video, whether it's for a bar mitzvah, a wedding, any keepsake. Please visit duffyvideo.com. And, buy a very inexpensive video, very competitive prices, and they help support these podcasts. So visit duffyvideo.com. Maryland, as we said, they're very experienced in their front seven. So at the point of attack, they're pretty strong. They're also secondary is very good. Most of those experts that we've really consulted in the preseason publications, I think the consensus is they are, quote unquote, tough team to get a handle on. What does that mean? Predictably unpredictable. Those of you who have not won with Joe Duffy's picks over the years, well, first of all, welcome aboard. You're going to win a ton this year. Predictably unpredictable. What that means is, especially if they're an underdog off of a terrible game where they got blown out, that's usually when you want to go with them. Conversely, if they're a favorite off of an impressive effort one week, would be the time to go against. Maryland is going to have, I think, a lot of ups and downs this year, where one week they're going to look great. The second week, they look tremendous. And Maryland's a type of team that squares don't want to bet on, and the odds makers also hate, but we sharps love them. We will actually bet on the unpredictability. Indiana, their offensive line is improving, but they did lose their best running back in school history in Tevin Coleman. I think they're probably still going to be a go against, even though they're going to be an underdog most of the year. Rutgers, they must replace four-year starter in Gary Nova, quarterback. They lost 6 starters from a defense and allowed 180 points to the top 4 teams in the country, top 4 teams in the Big Ten. We call that a Peter Principle team. They actually played well against the so-so teams where they struggled against the elite. Probably a little bit more to continue. Keep in mind, though, that Rutgers is in the Big Ten for their second year, so I think that they're more used to playing those tougher games back-to-back. Rutgers, like most teams, when they go up in a conference, they kind of start out okay, and then they struggle a bit. I think that Rutgers could be a surprising team spread-wise, and especially against non-elite teams in the Big Ten. But, they still might get crushed by the top teams, but I think against non-elite teams, Rutgers is going to be a pretty good spread bet. All right, folks, please subscribe to us on wherever you get this. YouTube, we do a simulcast, so subscribe to us there, or iTunes, Stitcher. Best thing to do is go to Twitter at Offshore Insider. Now, please, again, it's Twitter because they limit us. Offshore Insider with no S at the end is us on Twitter, but our website is offshoreinsiders.com, www.offshoreinsiders.com. More previews coming up, including the Big Ten West. Please visit offshoreinsiders.com and Duffy Video and keep these podcasts going.